When you start running the offense, it's not going to look good. So much of a timing offense. But my number one advice is to be patient, give it time. It takes time to develop, really get the hang of calling the offense. And just patience is important.
This is Keith Grabowski, founder and CEO of the Coaching Coordinator Network. As we mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast with Paul Kilby, we're excited to launch a new series here on the Coaching Coordinator Network called the Slot T Mafia. This series is hosted by Coach Paul Kilby, one of the most respected Slot T coaches in the country. Coach Kilby has helped build winning programs at multiple stops, guided teams deep into the Texas playoffs, and played a major role in the modern evolution of the Slot T offense. Beyond his success on Friday nights, he's become a central connector for Slot T coaches nationwide, helping preserve the system's history while advancing how it's taught, adapted, and installed today. The Slot T Mafia is more than plays and formations. It's about the lineage, the teaching, and the coaches who have carried this offense forward and the ones continuing to shape where it's headed next. If you want to go beyond the history and conversations and actually learn the details of the Slot T, that's where SlotT.com comes in. At SlotT.com, Coach Kilby breaks down the offense exactly how it's meant to be taught, formations, motions, series, adjustments, and the why behind every decision. It's not just content, it's a living system. Just as important, SlotT.com is a home to a growing community of coaches who are installing, adapting, and evolving the offense together. Coaches sharing ideas, asking real questions, and refining how the Slot T fits today's players and programs without losing what makes it work. If you're serious about building a clear offensive identity and teaching it with confidence, visit SlotT.com and join the coaches carrying this offense forward.
We have Coach Bush with us today. In the great state of Texas, Coach Bush is known as the Godfather of the Texas Slot T. So many family tree branches of coaches out there, directly or indirectly, relate right back to Coach Bush and his teaching of so many coaches the Slot T system. Coach Bush was an athletic director and head football coach for over 30 years in the great state of Texas and amassed over 271 wins, landing him in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. He won a state championship as an assistant coach at Port Neches Groves High School and had several Final Four appearances as a head football coach. I'm honored to have you on today, Coach, for many reasons, but mainly because I owe my whole career directly and indirectly to learning the Slot T system from you. And I know there are many Slot T coaches in the state of Texas who owe a lot of gratitude to your expertise, innovation, your whole A to Z organization of your football programs and the Slot T offense. So we're really excited to have you on here today.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's great being here. I always love to talk about football, number one, and Slot T is what I've done for all my life since my assistant days at Port Neches Groves. We won the state championship. And sure, it's great to talk to you. I think you're one of the great innovators of the Slot T offense. I think everybody kind of evolves a little bit, different directions to fit their personality.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's dive right in here, Coach. As I'm fairly familiar, I know Coach Hall, and he talks a lot about the history he's done, but I know we're going to the source here when we talk about the history, the invention of the Slot T here in Texas. But since I have the ultimate source here on information with us today, can you share with us the history of this great offense and how it came into being here in Texas?
Yeah, Paul, it's a long story, and it actually starts back in the 1930s with a coach named Harold Chesky Walker. You might have heard of Coach Walker. He was a coach in Texas, and this is just kind of a thing I have about Coach Walker. And I remember Coach Etheridge, who I coached with at Port Neches Groves, which was the beginning of the offense for me, that he told me about Coach Walker and the times that he coached in the Texas Panhandle at a school called Phillips High School. I don't think it's even much of a thing. It was an all-town back in those times. It says Harold Chesky Walker was known for as a long-time winningest coach in Texas. Never had a losing record. During the seasons, he produced 18 district championships, one state title, and his record was 197, 41, and 8 in 24 years. And some of the guys played for Chesky Walker, and one of them was L.G. Henderson. Now, L.G. Henderson and Doug Etheridge and a couple other guys that ended up being branches of the Slot T, they all coached together at Dalhart. I think they coached at Phillips and at Dalhart. And one of the coaches that I'd mentioned was L.G. Henderson. I'm going to hold that up as well, and maybe it'll come on in a minute. Has a picture of L.G. and shows all his record and everything that he did in the years he was coaching. But L.G. Henderson in Phillips, Texas in the early 50s. So he coached with Jesse Walker in the 50s. And Artesia in 1955, he became the backfield coach. In 1957, L.G. took over as the head coach at Dalhart, went back to Artesia with Coach Reese Smith, and stepped down in 1960 to become head coach. 14 years later, Artesia had won 5 state championships. LG had a record of 109, 41, and 8. And he's a big influence on the Slot T in West Texas. And actually, Doug and LG coached together. And Doug went from Artesia, and he went to Hobbs and won some state championship at Hobbs. And then Doug Etheridge came from there to Port Arthur, Texas. And then when he took the job at Port Neches, I was already at Port Neches. So I began coaching with Doug Etheridge, I guess, in 1973 at Port Neches Groves. In 1974, we went to the state semifinals. And in 1975, we won state championship. And at that point, I went on and took my first head job up at Dimmitt, Texas, up in the Panhandle.
And it's safe to say, I think that, and I don't know from which coach or if it all blended together, that it was a combination of kind of the dominating offense at the time, the veer and the wing tee and the power eye. Is that a fair statement to make?
Well, let me tell you this now. We never ran the A set until the state championship game in 1975. Doug was a power eye and a slot eye offense. We ran from the power eye, and he'd take that tailback, put him in the slot, put the halfback in the back of the eye, and that was what we call the O set. You as well. That was the slot. Now we'd get in the eye wide. We'd have the tailback out wide and the halfback in the back of the eye, and we'd do things out of the eye wide. Ran that quite a bit. Or we'd get in the O wide, which is the O set with the swingman out, depending on, and we would adjust those tailback and halfback according to the ability. If the halfback was a good receiver, good runner, tailback and may leave him in the back of the eye on the eye wide and put the halfback out wide. Those are the main sets we ran in 1973, 74 in the semifinals. We never ran the A set until the state championship game in 1975. But all the A set is you take that tailback from the back of the power eye and you put him over in the slot. And then with a quick motion, you just motion him back, either long motion to the power eye or short motion to the straight T. Now, I might mention that L.G. Henderson ran almost entirely from the straight T. He was a straight T coach, and everything he did was pretty much from that straight T. And the Sosa boys, they played for L.G., and so that's the reason they started out in the straight T as well. But, we played with us a Permian. The thing about the power eye, you're very limited to the backside, and we knew they were going to be very strong side oriented on us. So by getting that slot set, then we were ahead about man, and 349 was a hell of a play in the state championship game. And we threw the ball quite well because Doug Etheridge's son was the quarterback and threw the ball real well and ran real good out of the power eye. He'd run the sprint out series and out of the power eye wide. And so that was quite effective in the state championship game. But our best play was 349 out of the A set. Really the first time we ever ran out of the A set. We'd run out of the power eye before that.
Coach, I never knew that story. That is awesome. Because, A set's such a completely balanced formation. And to unleash 349 on that A set in the state championship game, man, talk about something we just take for granted of and run 8-10 times a game now, 349. And most of us, at all times, the quick side buck sweep. But man, to unleash that on Permian, that's why you're a legend.
Well, when I went to Dimmitt, my first head coaching job, I ran mainly out of the power eye and the O set, O wide, I wide. I didn't run the A set that much until I actually went to Alice. It was the first time I really ran a lot of the A set. And I just started playing with it in spring training. Doug never would run like the 3-2-8. So I was the first guy to ever run 3-2-8. He said it was the same thing as 8-0 reverse. But it's really not because you got an extra blocker. You don't get as much misdirection. You get a little bit of misdirection, but you got an extra blocker. But he would only run 8-0 reverse out of the O set and never ran the A set a lot after that. So I'm the one who really started running a lot of the A set and run the short motion where you motion back to a straight T and doing a lot of LG stuff. Then the long motion where you do all the stuff out of the power eye. And then, of course, staying in the A set, you're able to run the 349 and stuff you like to do. And, of course, you fake 349 right 8-hole verse out the east head as well.
Yeah. Oh, great stuff. 3-3-3 tailback round, 3-4-9 8-hole reverse, man. There's a whole offense in itself in those 3 plays.
Exactly. Add a little 332 in there. Quick trap.
Yeah,
Always trapped a lot.
absolutely.
Always kept people honest with the trap. We're always going to run the trap, probably 8 or 10 times a ball game at least.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's so neat to hear that, the history of that. I guess so many things take for granted of, that how that all came to be. That's great stuff. So this offense has been kind of known as a Texas-only offense for many decades. But now I believe this has so much to do with the internet, the availability of game film online, NFHS, broadcasting games all over the country, YouTube showing games, as well as other sources. And I've really found, especially in the last 4 or 5 years at Liberty Hill there, we had that run of, we moved up to Class 5A from 4A, and we went to the state semifinal 4 years in a row. And the second year we went to state championship game. And then the inquiries just ramped up. We've always had a lot there, but, I'm talking 80 to 120 email, phone call inquiries every offseason about the offense. And can we get film? Can we come down visit? Can we, and we'd have staffs from all over the country, and they make up their own cut-ups from YouTube and learn the play system somehow and try to make their own cut-ups. But at Blanco, we've already had 3 staffs come and visit us in the playoffs, and several call us here. We've just been here since June, calling to want to come visit as well, and same type of requests are cranking up. What are your thoughts on why this is such a great offensive system? I think it's kind of exciting that it is gaining so much momentum across the country.
Well, Paul, a lot of that is because as I grew older and retired, when I would get people requesting information, videos, playbooks, this, that, and the other, I'd refer them to you guys. I would tell them to call Liberty Hill and you and John Hall and those guys, because y'all's stuff is more current. And y'all have done a lot of, innovative things like your jet sweep. Your hurry up, getting to the line real quick and running the offense before they can tell where the slot is. Some of those things that makes it real effective. But to me, like you said, it's a balanced offense, but it's not. If you sit in the A set, which is what I begin to run most all the time, you've got your slot side, which you've got one extra blocker on the slot side, obviously. Because of the way we personnel, we've got our strongest blockers on the other side. Got strong guard, strong tackle, strong end, which people don't play your balanced and favor the strong side, then you're going to kill them back into the slot with 349. If they play you balanced, then you can quick motion, a long motion, and go where you want to go anyway. Now, I've always said, of course, the offense was always good to me, and like your question there says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's what I knew, and coaching with Doug Etheridge all those years and watching Doug call the offense and win the state championship, I asked him one time about, you always seem to make the right call at the right time. I said, Doug, how do you learn to make the right call? And he said the wrong call. And it was kind of, had to think about that a minute. But when you think about how to make good calls, well, all those bad calls come back after about 10 years running the offense. After you've called the offense for so many years, you get in certain situations and you've been there so many times, you know what's good and what's not. And going back to the offense, I think it's very effective in small schools. And I think y'all will do great with it there at Blanco because that's the right size school. You got some talent, but then you're able to divide that talent up to fit the offense. And when you're playing smaller schools, and I spent a lot of time looking at defensive personnel and finding out who's the best defensive tackle, who's the worst, where's the best defensive end, where's the worst linebacker. And when you find that, you can isolate your best people on their worst people. By being able to flip-flop the offensive line, obviously if I'm going to run 236, I'm going to run it to the weakest defensive tackle. If I'm going to run 8-hole reverse, I'm going to run it to the weakest defensive end. If I'm going to try to trap, I'm going to find the weakest tackle and get inside and get on the linebacker. So it's a great small school offense because you're able to put your people in the right position. You got your best people on one side. You can hide people a little bit on the other side. You can find places to hide people and allows you to put your best people on their worst people. So that's why I think it's a great offense, especially for small schools. But it can, you can evolve to fit your personnel easier in that offense.
I agree. It's such a great, you mentioned how do you learn to call such great plays in the crunch time? And he said by by messing up, by calling bad plays. You learn from that. And man, that's true, I think, for all of us. And I've always thought it's as I went along from a young guy trying to learn it and all that and call it it's such a great if then offense. If you're going to do that, then like I'm not a brilliant guy, smart guy by any means, but I just felt like the answers were built in. When you learn the thing, if they're going to do that tackle's going to penetrate, we're going to flip the set. If we want to run 3-3-2, we got to flip so we make sure we're trapping him. Or, if we want to run 3-3-3, flip the set. So we want to trap the guy who's just blasting upfield, or pick on that defensive end. Oh, you're going to put, you're going to try to flip your guy as we're breaking and screaming to the huddle. You're all area defensive end or whatever. Well, I guess we're going to run a lot of 349 until we wear him out. We'll run the other way. He's got to chase us for, a quarter and a half. And, now you're going to stay on one side. Now we got more buck sweeps to both sides. And it's always fun going at those guys that you ran away from for about a quarter and a half or 2 quarters are completely frustrated. They haven't had any action, and then about midway through the third quarter, you start going right at them. They're kind of worn out from chasing all over the place, I found. Not always.
Yeah, I might add, Paul, that in this day and time when everybody runs the spread, and I found this when I went back to PSG North and coached, several years ago, and everybody was running the spread, and we were the only ones in the district really running the slot T. And that it's a difficult offense to simulate, and especially in 3 days of practice. And, the corners are used to being out wide and backing up and covering people. And a lot of times they're not the biggest guys, they're smaller, faster people. And, when we were going to play those people, we'd tell the guards, we're going to pull out here. And they're going to try to teach those corners in 2 or 3 days to come meet you. They're going to try to maybe come stab you, but we're going to wear them out. And sure enough, if you come out and you knock the snot out of them, the second half, we're going to be rounding the corner. And sure enough, they're not used to being that physical. Corners are not used to coming and meeting guards over and over and over again. That's why I think at this day and time, it's a good offense because nobody's going to see it. And if you do a real good job of hiding the ball, and I know the years I was at Alice, we took great pride in, wearing those orange jerseys, the exact same color as the football, and we just have one stripe on the sleeve to match the football with the arms folded, and those kids did a great job of carrying out their fakes. And really, it was some of the plays we ran is hard till they got the ball. And one of the guys that did the best job against us said the way we worked out with your offense, we didn't use a football. We made sure we covered every direction you were going. So there's a lot of aspects of this offense that make it special. You know that. You run for a number of years. You're one of the best innovators around. I know when you put in the jet sweep, I was still at PSG North, and I had a group of coaches come down from Franklin, I think up in East Texas. And, of course, they had a lot of speed up there, and they really liked the jet set. And they went back to Franklin and put in a lot of the slot T stuff and ran the jet sweep, and it always state championship game. And Belleville, a guy named Grady Rowe, his brother coached with me, Randy Rowe. He's implemented it at Belleville and done a great job, and he went to the state championship game. I know Joaquin was there last year, and, I don't know exactly what tree they came from, but they run it as well.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. This is getting off track a little bit, but man, that was in the Slot T Mafia, I wasn't trying to sell anybody. I sold myself, but we came up with that Jet series back in the early 2000s. I know there's certainly some resistance. Some guys, it wasn't the offense. And I know when you retired at San Marcos and Coach Van Ness took over and I came in as the OC, I always said that was the most pressure I ever felt. I remember first head coaching job in Mathis, and we were second round game or something like that my first year, and that local Coastal Bend TV station came out and interviewed, and they said, "Wow, coach, this is a big game. This is the most pressure we ever had." And I said, "Absolutely not, man." Going into San Marcos when Coach Bush, I remember 2 things that used to just wear me out nerve-wise was you sitting in the end zone at Texas State watching our games. Just felt like I was being completely judged and laughed at. And when we first came in there and we're doing spring ball, I think I got there in late March and the athletic period, you'd retired, but you were having to be around till the end of the school year. And you were walking around the track with your hand weights and getting some exercise and stuff. And I always noticed when you got the long straightaway and we're about to call a player where you're walking real slow. And then when you got to the corners, you sped. I was like, you were walking around watching us, I felt like, and taking it all in. And we started putting in first few days, the 600 series. And, once you get that one play in 649, it's different. 628s, combination 3-2-8 and 8-hole reverse blocking. 622 tackle traps, 422 tackle trap, 626 GTs, 26 GT. It just completely fit the offense with the offset back and things. But I always said, and that pressure you walking around watching us was the most I ever felt.
Well, you didn't need to. Y'all did a great job. And, I might add, y'all went all the way to the quarterfinals one year as you were there, running the Slot T, and had some pretty good talent, but you did a great job with them. And, I got y'all beat Smith Valley, which had not been done before. I'd met up with Smith Valley many times. I didn't have the, intelligence or the innovative mind like you did to develop the offense enough to beat Smith Valley. That was a big win there. But you didn't need to feel any pressure because what I was trying to do was learn more. And I didn't really anticipate going back in coaching as much as I did after that. But I did enjoy running some of the jet sweep. I ended up running it more out of a bug eye, what I call the bug eye. Would have a trips to one side, and then I'd take the back turn just like you did over on the tight end side and bring that back real fast. I'd run the jet sweep into the trips, and then I'd fake the jet sweep and run the 622 trap back underneath, and then we would jet and then sprint out into it and use that jet back as part of the route, use the tail back as an extra blocker on that side. And one of the things I'd also do is I'd fake a jet sweep and then G block the quarterback back to the strong side and did some innovative things off of that. And I'd jet that guy and run like an 8-hole reverse as well. So anyway, yeah, everybody does little things a little bit different. I've always said that anybody who takes the Slot T and goes and puts it in their offense, that they evolve to fit their personality and not used to talking as much. I might mention some other people. I mentioned L.G. Henderson, Chesty Walker, and Doug Etheridge, and Doug was certainly the big influence on me. He had a great, won state championship, won several state championships at Monahans. He was at Monahans, Hobbs, and then Port Neches Groves. Then I might mention, of course, Jerry Vance was the beginning of the offense there in Liberty Hill, and he brought in Jeff Walker. And I gave Jeff his first job at San Marcos. I hired him as a junior high head coach. He did a great job. I don't think that junior high ever lost much of a game when Jeff was there. But when Jerry went to Liberty Hill, he brought Jeff with him. So Jeff really did a great job there. His head coaching job at Rogers, and then when he came back and took over Liberty Hill, and he had a state championship, I think, one year there. He got to the state championship game. You might mention Les Gold. Les was with me at Gregory Portland, and then he took the head job at Kennedy Southwest, was at Canyon, Lockhart, Navarro, Buda Hayes. Had a lot of success in the Slot T also. And now we've got Alan Hare. Alan Hare is also run it. He's come down to speak, I think, this week at the clinic down here in the valley. But he's had a lot of success with it over different places as well. So that's some other people I know. Of course, Tony Villarreal is the head coach down here at Port Isabel. And he's had a lot of success with it at Westaco and also at Port Isabel and some other places. There's still about 2 or 3 schools down here in the valley still running the Slot T.
Yeah, you said a couple things I appreciate, Coach. I know it's great. To me, it was always Bruce Bush and Jeff Walker. Those are the two I always wanted to visit and meet up. Everybody's got their, different parts of the tree and things like that. You mentioned Smith Valley. Coach Hill is such a great coach there, and they won the last 2 5A state championships here. Funny story out of there. My second year at San Marcos, we beat them. You mentioned went to the quarterfinals and were an overtime loss away from going to semis, and got to know some of those guys after. And one of the coaches was telling me at a track meet one year that, you talked about how hard it is to simulate the offense and, get that kid who's covering the number 2 receiver in the spread. Now he's got to take on the buck sweep. And they were telling me that trying to get a kid in there to play offense in practice was a big waste of time. So they got a young coach in there to really work the steps and learn it and do it. And funny story, I guess, back in the day there in whatever that was, 2006 or something, coach came out of there, cowboy opened up and the fullback, bam, and knocked his tooth right out. The next year they came back, we played them again, and the coach always wore a helmet from then on. One thing that, was so great for us, I don't know if you've seen it, and the first time I ran it was at Sweeney, but I brought it to Liberty Hill, and at first old Coach White, he didn't like it, but then we end up, and it's really a thing that I feel like guys from other states that I've talked to really latched onto. And I got it from a wing T team, not a concept of it, up in Michigan and close to where I grew up, but we call it 44 blast, and it's just that A set. It's kind of like, it's 34 power, I guess you could say, but you give the ball the halfback. And it sounds so simple, but you three-man wedge it with your strong guard, strong tackle, and end where they just, we've got pretty big splits, but they just, the strong end and strong guard keep their shoulders square and they just run shoulder to shoulder with that strong tackle, 1,000 miles an hour straight ahead. And our quarterback doesn't come back to the halfback. He gets the snap and takes it into the line, and the halfback's just trying to beat the handoff. And it is a brutally tough play to stop just because it just comes at you. We're sprinting the ball so fast, it comes at you so fast. But we've got a school in California, one of the ones I said made cut-ups from YouTubes and things like that. And they came down to visit us last year at Liberty Hill, and the guy said, we ran it 18 times in a playoff game, 44 blasts. So it's been a good little addition, too.
That ball, does your fullback just flare to the strong side? What does your fullback do on that?
It's a little bit awkward after the handoff. We tell our quarterback kind of long arm it, like, it's not like everything else where it's close in. We tell him to long arm it, get it to him. The halfback's trying to beat it, and the fullback just goes wider than his normal, like G-pat. He goes right at about the butt of the strong end, and we actually expect him to cut an end caving in behind it. Now, whether he can do that or not, now, if that guy's caving in behind it to catch it, it's usually already a 4 or 5 yard gain. But we try to go cut his outside leg, if he's falling in behind it. But it's tough.
So he goes behind, the halfback goes first.
Yeah. Halfback's just going, he is trying to beat the handoff. He's the second he hears the arm red, he is just going shot out of a cannon. And it's pretty neat. The quarterback, if he takes it back a little bit, he'll miss him. He's so well protected by that wedge. He can almost take that ball and take it into the line a little bit. It's a really great play that fits the offense so well.
Yeah, I think we talked about that before. You've talked to me about it, but I think you put it in kind of later, probably after I was already out of the coaching aspect of it. But yeah, it's like I said, everybody will innovate a little bit. And I tell people there's a lot of things I put in my playbook and then later torn them out. You always come up with these plays that look great, and you look at them in spring training, and then after you run them 3 or 4 times a game, you say, well, that's not going to be part of the offense. You can oftentimes get too much, and I know Jeff Walker, as a coach, he was very sound and simple, and he didn't do much. He didn't care what you did. He was going to run the offense and the simple part of it. I think another thing I was going to mention a while ago, and I kind of forgot, is after many years of running this offense, there's so many things people can do against you. I mean, they're going to try to maybe change their defense. They're maybe going to run a 6-5 goal line. They're going to bring the 5s down to 3s and run some kind of TNT stack on you. People are going to change their defense to try to stop you. So you learn what to do against all of those. When people would get out of their normal defense and jump into a 6-5, I knew what I was going to do because I'd seen that so many times. And, somebody will come down to 2 1s and give you almost a 6-5 goal line, and you know what to do against that, where to go at 8 reverse outside stuff. But that's how you say that, as far as having headphones, you spend $10,000 and get 10 cents worth of information because as a head coach, when you've run this offense for so many years, you can look out on the field and you can see what they're doing to you.
Yeah, Coach, you're making me think right now of, I remember hearing someone ask Jeff before he passed away, how you call the game, because he used to never wear headsets at all. And man, as soon as he said it, I was like, that's it. He said, I just play the game with them. It's so simple, but I think that's the best description of it. You just try to put yourself in their position, those kids, and feel what you're feeling from the defense, and back to if-then offense, call it accordingly from there.
Yeah, when you call it offense, it's a rhythm. It's a rhythm you get into. It's your 236. It's your 228. It's your 243 tackle trap. It's your 349. It's your 8-hole reverse. It's your quick trap 328. You get in and see what the defense is. You got to get them going. It's a rhythm.
Yeah, you mentioned the rule blocking. Throwing different fronts at you. That's stuff I've always found over the years. I don't know, like you could be hurt a little bit by changing defenses, totally different front than they've ever run before. Early on, like non-district, maybe your kids, but it's such a rep-based offense, and you're going to keep doing what you do, regular season playoffs, and keep going. Your kids get to it. It gets very hard for them to throw anything at you. Your kids can't just go rule block.
Yeah, I mentioned Jeff, and he was so simple, like on 349, they were going to go first inside. He didn't care what he put over. He was going first inside, kick out, and here we go. And there's a lot to be said for that because people will try to stop the offense, or they'll try to jump in gaps, and they're falling into your trap when they do that. You block down, kick out, and here you go. On the sweeps, that's really what you want to do anyway.
Yes. Yep. It's hard when you got 3 kids, whether it's 328 with your R set or 349, the swingman tailback quick tackle, and they just get butt to butt, hip to hip, and run 1,000 miles inside. It's hard to stunt or stem through that.
Yep. Yes, good play, good goal line play as well.
Yes, and it takes out blaming kids, like, "Oh, you shoulda did this." Just no, as long as you're running full speed on your path, you're gonna be right. That's all we're gonna require from you. But what's your advice, coach, for coaches outside Texas who are exploring the idea, or they're currently diving in head first, full steam in this great whole order of football? Like, is there a mentality or philosophy you believe a coach should have to run this system?
I think number one, Paul, is, and you probably know that from coming into Blanco when they probably run the spread before, is you have to be patient. It's not going to look good at the start. Now, you mentioned to me that those kids had looked at a lot of film, they had some idea, plus they believed in it. I think your community's got to buy into it. And of course, what helped us at San Marcos is that they had not won at all. We came in and put in the slot T and won. So they kind of took ownership. And I think that's important that you go to a place where, they're not going to complain about not throwing the ball enough or this, that, and the other. They got to believe in what you're doing. But when you start running the offense, it's not going to look good. It's so much of a timing offense. And that's why if you have a spring training or time to come in, of course, the rules in Texas now are not quite as strict as they used to be. You get in formations and you can run on and look at all the backfield actions and those type of things, even in the off season. But my number one advice is to be patient, give it time. It takes time to develop, and it takes time for you to really get the hang of calling the offense. And just patience is important.
Yeah, and that patience, I think, comes through are you fully buy in? If you fully buy in, you got to buy in completely and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we're hanging our hat on. We're building a whole identity out of this in our community with our kids. And sure, there's rough spots. I mean, I put this in at 5 different schools, 4 as a head coach, and here as an offensive coordinator. Came as the OC at San Marcos, but I sure wasn't putting it in. You guys were just rolling after 8 years there. But coming here, our first game, we lost to Hondo 20-13, and they really had a good little scheme against us. And it's a big step up from scrimmages and Friday nights and all that type of thing. And man, you're walking the hallways the next week, and there's a real knockdown because we were real successful in our 2 scrimmages, and you could just see a little bit of doubt in kids and maybe some coaches were here previously, or not doubt, but just they're kind of ooh, we only scored 13, and because our defense played pretty darn good against a good Hondo team, bigger school than us. What do we do? You know what we do? We're just going to do what we do. I believed in it. I sure was hopeful it was going to start ticking pretty soon. You got to start winning. But the next week we played another bigger school, 381 Randolph, and the offense, we got after them. It was 63-7, and we never gave them a chance. I had them kind of rated I thought going into the game, they're about the same as Hondo. They're very similar teams. They're really big, and I just thought they're very similar teams. And, after that, it was 35, 42. We were scoring points pretty much every week other than a non-district loss to Yoakum, who we only scored 21 on them, but they won the state championship a level up from us. But you're right. You got to stay patient, I believe, and you got to say, a 20-13 loss in non-district, that's not derailing us, or a couple. Like when my first head coaching job at Mathis, we started off 1-2. Now they hadn't been in the playoffs in 7 years, but we started off 1-2, and it was a lonely feeling around town, as an outsider coming in. And then we got on a 7 or 8 game roll and won the district championship and went to the second round. The next year went 10-3 the third round. But you go back to that 1-2 start, and you're like, man, thank goodness we didn't panic or, try to change something. That was never an option.
I think some as well, you got to also consider about a little bit about what your tradition is at the school, whether they have won in the past, whether they expect to win. And I think that's culture. I think the culture of school has a lot to do because we went to San Marcos. They had won, I think, 1 game year before, and I don't think they maybe not won any the year before that. And the thing we did best at San Marcos is we had some good athletes, but I think it's important to get the right kid in the right position, especially offensively. You got to get that speed back at tailback. You got to have that fullback with the quickness. You got to have that halfback with the size and to be able to. But anyway, I think we got the right kids in the right position, and we're playing Austin Travis first game, and Austin Travis, we were about 35 points better in my mind. And we take them to kickoff and we drive right down the field, just executing the offense pretty good. We get down to the 5-yard line and the quarterback opens up the wrong way on 332, drops the ball on the ground. The nose guard picks it up and runs 95 yards for a touchdown. So we have a 14-point turnaround right there. But you can see on the kids' faces that here we go again, because they had lost so much. And that's when the veins started popping out on my neck. And I had to get in the kids' faces. But anyway, to make a long story short, we blocked the field goal at the end of the game to win the game. I think we won like 17 to, or I don't know, we won, but we had to block a field goal to do it. But that was, we were 35 points better. We were so much better. The kids have got to believe that they can win as well. But then we came back the next week and beat a pretty good Seguin team, and then came back and played a team that they had lost to 50-something to nothing the year before, and we beat them. And so that's when we started rolling on through the season. But anyway, I think, of course, being patient, I think getting the right kids in the right position is a key. And, getting them there early and leaving them there. Sometimes you got to change kids around, but getting them there as soon as possible and leaving them there and making the kids believe we're going to win. You know that.
Yes, yeah. You mentioned the positioning of kids. I've always had interesting experiences where, kids would just look at you like, what? When you first mentioned something. At Mathis' first head coaching job, we took a backup JV fullback and made him our center. And their center the year before was about 235, and this kid, Juan Ramirez, was about 155, 160 pounds. And, holdover coaches were laughing at me thinking, what? Has this guy lost his mind? Anyways, he ended up being a first-team all-district center. He would go out and cut a linebacker the second the ball was moving. He was running off to go cut somebody. And, I remember going in a place before where you had a kid who was a corner, and you say, well, we're going to play him on offense. And coaches just, no, coach, he can't catch. In their mind, he's a slighter kid or whatever, and they're thinking, you're talking receiver. Like, no, if he can take a handoff, he can be a tailback for us, So I think there's slot T guys who got to know what they're looking for, and then we could talk all day on the 160, 170-pound guards that we've all made a living on. 4 years at Liberty Hill in 5A going to the semifinal, our biggest guard was 180 pounds. And all those years, smallest was about 155 pounds. So you can play kids that in other offenses, people would be looking at you like you've lost your mind, but they can fit perfectly in the slot T.
I think that's a good point. I had one of the best centers I had at San Marcos had been a quarterback all the way up to his sophomore year. He's a little chubby, but he was extremely smart and just had a motor running. He was able to tell every defense. He could call the defense and point it out. And certainly he was a big, big part of the offense his junior and senior year as a center, and one time been a quarterback. So that's exactly right. And one time at Gregory Portland, I had this quick guard. I always wanted to play fun team, jump over and play fullback on fun team. And we got looking like, that kid can really run. And he ended up being the starting fullback and just great effort, just one of those kids that never gave up. And talking about getting the right kid in the right position, I think if you look at the University of Indiana, now he might have not had the development, he just went and found them, but he took some 3-star and 4-star athletes and just won a national championship because he got the right people in the right position. So they certainly doesn't have a winning tradition, but he dang sure won the national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you made me think. Liberty Hill in 2018, they played La Vega in the state championship game, and they lost their fullback in the second game. And I guess the drop off between 1 and 2 was so steep that they moved their quick guard there. And it was a senior year, he'd never carried a football before in his life. And, he ended up being he was their least leading rusher, but he had 12 or 1,300 yards rushing in a 16-game schedule. And, that kid's loving it, getting to move from guard to fullback.
Yeah. I've always said our fullbacks and quick guards are kind of interchangeable.
Well, yes, sir. Well, Coach, I appreciate it. I got one more for you, and this is more up to date. Your son, Travis, this is such a great story, and I might have my stats wrong, but I've always heard this over the years. He played quarterback for you at GP at Gregory Portland, and he rushed for over 1,200 yards and threw for over 1,200 yards in this offense in the slot T down on the coast by Corpus Christi. And then after playing college football at Texas State, he began coaching for you at San Marcos. Travis moved on pretty quickly to the college level, G8 at TCU, and then just took off and even did a year internship with the Buffalo Bills. And he came in 6th this year in the FCF's Eddie Robinson College Football Coach of the Year Award. UTRGV's inaugural season, the Vaqueros go 9-3, winning 2 more games than any new college football program in the history of the NCAA. This is such a great father-son role reversal, him starting off working for you, and now in retirement, you've gone back to work, working for your son as the director of high school relations. Such an awesome story. Can you share with us some of the experiences this has provided for you and your son, Travis, who I coached with for a couple of years and is pretty much a Mensa genius. He's one of the smartest humans I've ever been around. And it's got to be a great experience. If you can share a couple things with us, we'd love to hear it.
Well, Travis, he's always been a great kid, bless his heart. And his mom and I really like him a lot. But yeah, he was a great player, GP for me, because he'd been around the offense as a little kid growing up. So carrying out the fakes and knowing what to do, and he knew the offense as good as I did, and it was a lot of fun watching him execute. And they went to the semifinals, I guess, his junior year. Then the next year, he dislocated his elbow in I think the third round playoff game, which we ended up losing to Hayes Consolidated. But anyway, yeah, Travis, when he went on and played at Texas State, and that's the reason I took the San Marcos job, to watch him play at Texas State. And I guess the rumor got out that whenever Travis graduated, I was going to leave. And so the superintendent said, when a kid graduates, you can just give him a job here. Well, and they kind of created a position. So Travis came and coached with me for a year, and I kind of got him started. Of course, he went on from there to TCU as a graduate assistant, and then came back later to coach at Texas State. But and no, it's just been a great thing for my retirement, Paul, to just be a part of this. Travis ended up getting the job, I guess, about 3 years ago, and he gave me a position, which is much better than a job, in that I have a token position of high school relations, which I asked him what high school relations does, and I don't think anybody really knows. I do, schedule things for high school coaches when they come in to visit practice or come to a scrimmage or something, and I kind of help them a little bit on getting tickets for the games, this, that, and the other. But it's been an awesome experience for me. Our deal there is that I'm really a volunteer, non-paid position, but I do get full access, and then I travel with the team. I get to be on the sideline, and I come to all the practices in case any coaches come. And of course, Travis does not run the slot T. He's a no huddle spread guy. And looking at the team being built was a fantastic experience, because who'd expect a inaugural program to win 9 games? In our recruiting time, first couple of years, everybody would tell them, you don't want to go down there because they're not going to win for several years. And going straight into the Southland Conference, most programs that start out end up playing Division II or even Division III teams. Like when Travis was on Larry Coker's staff, he was the offensive coordinator at UTSA when they started the program about 10 years ago. And they played Division II schools. They did not play any Division I schools the first year. And also, during that time, they didn't have the transfer portal like they do now. So we were able to transfer, Eddie Malberger in, who was a great quarterback. Of course, Liberty Hill beat him in a playoff game years ago, 77 to 72 or something. But anyway, yeah, Eddie was a great addition. We had running back come in, had some graduates one from Yale, had some guys come in and really made a difference. But, I'd hoped, looking at the schedule, we played a Division II school early in Sol Ross, and then we played Prairie View, which was a pretty good team. Ended up winning their conference. We beat them second game, but then we played Langston State and Texas Wesleyan, which were, I was hoping we could win 3 of the first 4. We ended up winning all 4, and I said, well, maybe we can win a couple of conference games. So I was hoping for a 6-6. So to win 9-3 and to really be Lamar beat us with a 58-yard field goal to the end of the game, or we'd have been in the FCS playoffs. So certainly that was a great start for us. And for me, being able to be around that, when you get old, and I'm 78 years old, I think it's important to have a reason to get up each morning. And I mean, we just finished getting 13 kids out of the portal and got a quarterback coming in that spent 3 years at Oklahoma State. And a kid from Frisco, Lone Star, that was a 4-star athlete, quarterback coming out of there, passed over 10,000 yards in his time there. So we got some pretty good kids coming in. Got a running back that from Smithson Valley that's been 4 years at LSU. He's going to graduate at LSU, and he's going to be here in the summer. So we got some older kids coming in, and it's a fun thing to be a part of it. As you know, the college coaching is the Wild West now. So it's something I've never been around. So it's been a great time for me, keep my mind working. And of course, I don't help coach much. I just kind of watch and give my opinion to some things every now and then. But as far as what they do, it's a super thing to be a part of, Paul. And I appreciate you saying that.
What a special thing for you and Travis to be able to get to work together. I know you got some huge fans here in Blanco, and when we were back at Liberty Hill, we were pulling for y'all, the year before, like you said, everybody had you pegged for that. Everyone's like, well, they got a good shot in those 4 non-district games. They're playing some, smaller schools, and like, whoa, it's going to be tough. They get to the Southland, and y'all go 9-3. I mean, it's a Cinderella story. It's awesome, man. We were all pumped up. And you mentioned, I gotta say that you mentioned Eddie Lee Marburger, man. We Coach Walker, we came over here from Liberty Hill. We played them in the COVID year in the quarterfinal, and that guy was unbelievable. We had a good defense that year. Linebackers playing at Army now, and he just got them all on their heels early. I mean, he was threading passes where we had guys totally covered, and he was just putting it in there, and they took off running on us, and defensive ends who were monsters for us, he was faking them out. I mean, he got in everybody's heads, and he threw for over 600 yards. But like you said, luckily we rushed for 729 yards that game. So it was quite a shootout. And then we turned around the next week to go to the state championship game, and we lost 62-61 in overtime to Crosby. So lots of high-scoring games. As soon as you said that name, man, I love that kid, Eddie Lee Margaret. And just saw after the game, he just seemed like one of the classiest kids ever, man. A lot of respect for him.
He was. He's a great kid, great leader. He could spin the ball, and he could throw deep. Of course, we had a receiver we had gotten from San Marcos, Tony Diaz, and he had been kind of some issues at San Marcos over the years, and I think he got kicked off the team as a junior. But we got him here as a half scholarship. And in the spring, went through the workout year and said, this kid's pretty good. And, spring, when Eddie Lee came in and the way he spin the ball deep, we said, boy, we hope we can keep this kid for maybe 2 years. Well, he was a freshman All-American, All-Conference, and he just went to Iowa for $800,000. So we lost him, but we got some other receivers coming in. But yeah, it's Eddie Lee was a special guy and great leader in that quarterback room. We had some pretty good quarterbacks. We recruited that Jackson kid from Ingleside, who had been 4A Player of the Year a couple of years ago. We recruited him. He went through the workout year, and had a kid that was at Bernie that took him to the state finals as a sophomore. And got a kid from Flower Bluff that was 5A Player of the Year last year. He came in midterm last year. So we've got some pretty good young quarterbacks coming up, and have a leader like Eddie Lee, who's such a good kid, really made a big difference in the program. And this other kid coming in, we'll see. We're going to let the other kids compete for it in spring training, so we're going to see how it all goes. But it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Like I said, you got a lot of fans out there, man. A lot of people just loving to see you getting to work with Travis, and it's just a great story, man. Great story. But Coach, I really appreciate it, man. Anytime we can get together and talk about some Slot T, it's a huge honor for me. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this with us today. And go Vaqueros down there in the valley for UTRGV. But I know us Slot T guys at heart will always have that common Mafia bond.
Yeah, Slot T Mafia is known all over the place, and you guys do a great job with it. You're one of the great innovators. And I think your website's going to be a huge success. And I enjoyed doing this. Love to talk about the Slot T. And by God, we'll be seeing you win some state championships here in the next couple of years, I'm pretty sure.
That'd be some good stuff right there. Okay, Coach. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Enjoy.
If this conversation sparks something for you, if you're curious about how the Slot T actually works, how it's taught, or how it can fit your program, that's exactly what SlotT.com is built for. At SlotT.com, Coach Paul Kilby goes far beyond interviews and theory. He teaches the details of the offense, formations, motions, series structure, adjustments, and the decision-making that ties it all together. Not just what to run, but why it works and how to teach it clearly. Just as important, SlotT.com is a community. It's a place where coaches are sharing ideas, asking real questions, and evolving the offense together. learning from each other while staying rooted in the principles that have made the Slot T successful for decades. If you're looking to build a clear offensive identity, teach with confidence, and be a part of a group that's moving the Slot T forward the right way, head to slott.com and join the Slot T Mafia.